You know why I really love Nick Hood as a minister? I watched his father do it, and he took over for the church, and he was one of us, but he really turned out to be a great minister. I know it's hard, and that's something that I know that all ministers may not be doing what they're doing because for the right reasons, but I know it's hard. I know he's a beautiful man, and we've been knowing each other for over 50 years. I believe in him. He's inspired me in so many ways to do what I'm doing and try to be the best at it. Make sure you watch Nick Hood's ministries. You'll never be the same.
God is trying to show you something every step of the way. When things seem to be going wrong, that's God's way of opening another door. I am convinced that God has been directing me every step of my life.
On the Word Network.
America used to be considered a godly country. It doesn't seem to be that way to me now. And I don't mean to be disrespectful or anything, but it's so many things they're okaying for the wrong reasons. There's not godly reason. People need to really open up the Bible, the Bible, and look in it, and really get it into their heart. And this, the way Reverend Hood is doing this is a comfortable way. It's not forcing anything on people. It's a comfortable way and a loving way for it to continue to move in that direction.
The way Reverend Hood presents it, you can understand it, and it makes you want to delve into the Bible even more so that you can see more, because it seems like the program goes off too fast. We need the bread of life.
We really do.
These days we need it more than ever, and Reverend Hood's ministry on TV is giving us our bread.
Personal power guided by Christian love. May the power of God's Holy Spirit fall upon you as you sit back and enjoy today's program. I introduce you now to Pastor Nicholas Hood III.
Today I want to talk about the lonely Christian. I think about Elijah, who lived many years before Christ was born, but frankly, much in the life of Elijah is very similar to what you and I go through today. There's a period in the life of Elijah who is, arguably the greatest prophet who ever lived, leading up to Jesus Christ. But there's a period in Elijah's life when Elijah was very lonely. He lived at a time when the dominant king was a King Ahab. His wife was Jezebel. I think Jezebel's more famous than Ahab because Jezebel was mean. And she got angry with Elijah because at one point Elijah is challenging the prophets of Baal, which was a Canaanite god, and he challenges them, and they're going back and forth where Elijah brings fire down from heaven. They're on Mount Carmel, and eventually Elijah kills 400 prophets of Baal. And Jezebel's so angry, she said, by tomorrow night, you're going to be dead. She said, I'm going to do to you what you did to those 400 prophets. And so Elijah starts running, and he's running away from Jezebel. He's running away from Ahab. Sidebar, running away from Jezebel. Have you ever heard people look at somebody call out to a woman, you Jezebel, you? That's where that comes from. Elijah and Jezebel in 1 Kings chapter 19. But Elijah's running for his life. And in running for his life, Jezebel has sent the army out. They're trying to catch Elijah. And Elijah goes into hiding in a cave. And in the cave, Elijah starts praying to God. And in praying to God, he tells God, he says, what good is my life? What good is my life? I'm going to die. He said, and I am alone. He said, I alone am here worshiping you. And, poor Elijah is at his wit's end. He is lonely. He believes in God. He hopes in God. And he trusts in God. But just like the modern Christian, but Elijah is also lonely in God. He's lonely because he can't figure out how he can get out of this. Now, he's already brought fire down from heaven. How many of us, you or me, has brought fire just because we prayed? He has done all kind of miracles, which should have been enough for Elijah. He's brought fire down from heaven. He's brought water down to wash out the fire of the false prophets. He's doing everything he's trying to do is working out, but he doesn't see it. And so Elijah becomes lonely. And in the cave, in his loneliness, he says finally, Lord, I alone am left to worship you. And at that point, God calls out to Elijah, and he tells Elijah, come out of the cave. He says, come out of the cave, Elijah. And by the way, you think you're alone. He said, but there's 7,000. There's 7,000 prophets right now in Israel who have not bowed down to the false god of Baal. He said, so in other words, God is saying, Elijah, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Stop feeling like you're the only one, because you're not. And that's the word that I want to begin with today. I don't know if there's anybody looking at this today who feels like you're a lonely Christian. You feel like you've tried to do the right thing. You've tried to live your life in the way that Jesus has ordained that we might live it. You've tried to be faithful. You've tried to be loving. You've tried to be forgiving. You've tried to stay away from jealousy and envy and hatred. But all that you do, the good works that you do, sometimes may make you feel like you are all alone. And this message today is for you. When you feel like nobody else in your family really appreciates you, when you feel like your children are getting on your time, saying, I wish you had been a better mother. I wish you had been a better father. I wish you had spent more time with me doing this, less time with me doing that. I want you to know that God is talking to you right now through me. And what God is saying is, go back and read 1 Kings 19 and read about Elijah when he was at his lowest point. And think about what God said to Elijah. God tells Elijah, you're not alone. You think you're alone, but you're not the only one who worships me. You're not the only one who has not bowed down to a false god. You are part of a ministry that is a lot bigger than yourself. And once you and I begin to realize that we're not alone, that's when the power of God is amplified in our lives. When you realize that you're not the only one who worships Jesus Christ, when you begin to realize that you're not the only one who is tithing and offering to your church, when you realize that you're not the only one who is trying to be faithful, even when it's difficult, trying to maintain love and joy and peace and grace and harmony when it's not returned, for the caregiver out there who's running back and forth through the house, getting food, getting prescriptions, getting this, getting that for your loved one, and you're tired, you're worn out. I want to remind you that, like Elijah, you are not the only one who is worn out. You are not the only one who's tired. You are not the only one who wonders, have I been forsaken? And at that moment, I hope and I pray that the Lord will talk to you the way the Lord talked to Elijah, saying, you are not alone. You are not alone. And therefore, hold your head high and look to the skies and realize that I have a blessing for you. I have a blessing with your name written on it. I have something even more wonderful than what you've accomplished up to this point in your life. But you can't fully taste it. You can't fully enjoy what I have for you if you're stuck in the cave, if you're hiding. And some of us, my friends, are in a virtual cave. Some of us, like Elijah, run and we duck our heads in a veritable cave. It may not look like a cave. It may not smell like a cave. But if you take yourself away from society, if you duck and hide because you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, and you're afraid when you think that you've done the best that you can do, and you cannot see a way out, and so you duck and hide because you're hoping that, like a child, if you close your eyes, that this bad experience will go away. God will talk to you, and God will let you know you are not alone. You are not the first person to step out in faith. You are not the first person to walk on deep water. And to be honest, sometimes the Christian can feel lonely. Sometimes not just lonely in terms of not having company, not just lonely because you feel like I don't have anybody I can talk to on the telephone, but lonely because you look at your life and you say, you know, I can't really relate to my neighbor. I can't relate to my family members. I can't relate to my church members because my faith is on a different level. I can't relate to some of these Christians because they're looking at God on one level, but I'm looking at God on another level. There are people who are praying for small things. I'm praying for big things. There are people who are loving in a small way. I'm loving in a big way. And I would encourage you to think about the way God reacts to Elijah. When God tells Elijah, no, you're not alone. By the way, there's 7,000 preachers like you. You may not know them. You may not understand them. You may have never met them. But there's still people in Israel who've not bowed down to this false god. And so lift your head up, Elijah. Lift your spirits up. Lift your heart up. And realize that I have something even greater for you. But I can't give it to you because you're stuck in a cave. There's some of us, my friends, can't reach our economic opportunity because we're stuck in a cave. We're stuck with our head in the sand, worried in a pessimistic kind of way that we can't take our life to the next level. There's some of us who are stuck in a cave in our marriage, stuck in a cave in our dating, in our loving. We've been bent down so long. We've been abused for so long. We've been worried for so long that we don't measure up, that we don't compete, we can't compare with the next guy or the next woman. And because of this, we take ourselves out. We take ourselves away from people when what we ought to be doing is involving ourselves with people. I worry sometimes about the nations of the world. When I think about the way I see the world going right now, sometimes I feel like Rodney King understood it best. Why can't we all get along? We have so many nations that are riled up in conflict with one another. And, I'm just one guy. But I look at the world and the dynamics of conflict within the world, and I say, all we really want, all the people of the world seem to want, is really to have a viable economy. People want to be able to eat. People want to be able to make money. People want to be able to produce. And I just wish the the United States would rise to come out of its cave and say, it's one thing to bomb Palestine. It's one thing to have our guard up against China and Russia, to be confused about Ukraine, what side we're on. But frankly, all those nations, China, Russia, India, Venezuela, Israel, Palestine, what they really want is to figure out how can we prosper. And our economy is so thriving, so great. We have the power to do that. For case in an example, think about Vietnam. In the 70s and 60s, we were fighting Vietnam, but now that we no longer fight Vietnam, Vietnam is an economic powerhouse. And if we could do that in Vietnam, we can do that through the whole world. And so what I'm saying is, it's important not to isolate yourself. It's important for nations not to isolate themselves, but it's also important for individuals not to be isolated. Don't isolate yourself from your church. Don't isolate yourself from your family. Do not isolate yourself from your neighbor, but realize that we have more in common than we have apart. That's really what God was trying to tell Elijah. Come out of the cave and rise to this higher level that I have in store for you. My friends, I want you to think about that. When I come back from the break, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Elijah and how he came out of that cave and got away from his loneliness. I'll be right back.
There are people all across this globe who now will have the opportunity to know you like I do, because of course you are very forthcoming in telling stories about life, stories that are relatable, and that means something. How wonderful it is, and I just look forward to seeing how this platform, this new platform, will just rise and grow and really be a vessel through which you can be a blessing to folk all over this world, and Lord knows we need it.
God is trying to show you something every step of the way. When things seem to be going wrong, that's God's way of opening another door. I am convinced that God has been directing me every step of my life.
On the Word Network.
Today I'm talking about the lonely Christian. We began with the story of Elijah in 1 Kings chapter 19, where he felt all alone. He felt like he had done all he could do on behalf of the Lord, standing up for the Lord. And in spite of his faith in the Lord, it looked like his life was about to end, that Jezebel and her husband, Ahab, would kill him for standing up for God. And the point that I get from this story is that sometimes, like Elijah, you and I feel all alone. The Christian can feel alone. And when you feel like you've stepped out in faith, you've stood up for righteousness, justice, and mercy, when in your own way you've tried to be forgiving, sometimes other people don't really accept that. Sometimes it can seem like the best that you've done just makes people more angry. My admiration for Martin Luther King Jr. and all the women and men of the civil rights movement continues to grow. When I think about what they went through and how lonely it was, I know a lot of people who were involved in the civil rights movement who said that basically some of their friends, some of their family members did not understand them, did not appreciate them. It wasn't that their family and friends didn't love them, but it's that they thought they were in danger. They were afraid that they might be killed. But for a person to love God enough to say, I'm willing to die on the battlefield for my Lord. And I don't care what other people think. I don't care what they say. When you get to that point in life, you're in lonely territory, because not everybody is seeing your faith. Not everybody's understanding your rationale for why you are loving when other people say hate. They don't understand why you're forgiving when other people say forget. They don't understand when you're talking about peace and somebody else is talking about war. And so sometimes it can be very lonely at the top of the faith pyramid. It can be very lonely when it's clear to you what God is telling you to do, but everybody else, not everybody else, necessarily sees it your way. And when you get to that point in life, the best advice I can give you is hold on to your faith. Not just hold on to your faith, but let your faith undergird you. When you don't have enough money and you're trying to figure out, how do I move to the next step? When you don't have enough support to do the things that you really feel called to do, when you don't feel like you have enough support to make your dreams a reality, your hopes a reality, then you have to keep pushing. You have to keep fighting, to keep holding on. And somebody looking at this right now understands what I'm talking about. Somebody is living with a husband who's not giving you the support that you need. It's okay. You can nudge them right now. Somebody is living with a wife who is not as helpful or supportive as they could be. Okay, give her a nudge right now. And the point that I'm making is that, it's lonely at the top of the faith pyramid. And what I mean by that is the more you grow in faith, the closer you get to Jesus, the more clearly you understand what God is calling you to do, the more you may realize that not everybody is on the same page with you. Not everybody may really appreciate or understand what you're doing. And when you get to that point, you just have to run your own race and not look back. You need to keep your eye on the end zone and just start running. You need to keep your eye on the prize that is in front of you and strive toward that prize. Fight for that prize. Hope for that prize. And don't let other people turn you around. Elijah ran as far as he could until he just ran to a cave. And in running in that cave, he gives up. He says, God, it is enough. I am no better than my fathers. He said, take my life because I can't do any better. And furthermore, I am alone in my faith. And some of us have to be very careful that we don't become judgmental of others because of our own faith. That's part of what Elijah is going through. Part of what Elijah is experiencing is it's almost a proud kind of faith. He's very proud of himself. He knows he's the one who, with the power of God, has brought fire down on Mount Carmel. He knows he's the one, with the help of God, who's brought water down to wash away the fires of the false gods. But he doesn't see anybody else. And part of the reason why Elijah can't see anybody else is because he's too close to the fire himself. He's too close. And what God wants us to do, wants you and me to do, is never to become judgmental of somebody else's faith. It really bothers me when I read and sometimes hear the criticism of other preachers. Preachers criticizing other preachers. And it really bothers me because I don't think God meant it that way. I think God created a world that's big enough for some diversity. Now, it's funny, in America now, there are people who don't want to use the word diversity, but there's a place for spiritual diversity. And in a spiritual diversity, what that means is, like Elijah, there may be thousands who agree with you, but you don't know it. One of the things I like about when I talk about the thousands who agree with you, one of the things that I really love about this show, this worship broadcast, is that every week people write me, every week people call me, and every week somebody leaves a message for me. And as best as I can on Saturday afternoons, when I get finished with what I'm doing, I pick up the phone and I actually call people back. You know, this is a new ministry. And so I'm just getting started. I don't have that many calls, but I do have some every week from all over the country. And I call people, and one of the most exciting and encouraging things that I hear is that some of the people who call me tell me, one, they like how I preach, but two, they tell me that they're Pentecostal. And I like that because the church I pastor is not Pentecostal. I'm in a United Church of Christ. But part of the reason why I wanted to go on the air with a broadcast like this is for people like the people who've been calling me, telling me, I can relate to what you're saying. And by the way, I'm Pentecostal. By the way, I'm apostolic. And what I get out of that is a reminder that I am not alone. I am not the only guy out there preaching the word of God like this. And if I can relate to the Pentecostal, if I can relate to the apostolic, I think I can relate to you. And so I hope this message has been a blessing for you today. I hope you tell your friends to look at me on Saturdays, 2:30 Eastern Standard Time on the Word Network. And if God has pierced your heart, I hope you'll consider making a contribution to this ministry. It's tax deductible, but you will help me promote the gospel of Jesus Christ in my own way. Thank you so much for listening, watching this program. Hope to see you next week. And until then, I am praying for you. God bless.
We hope you've been blessed in a powerful way. Just knowing you took the time to watch today's broadcast is a great encouragement to Pastor Nick Hood. If this broadcast has been a blessing to you, we ask that you mail a tax-free donation to Nicholas Hood Ministries at 4535 Chrysler Drive, Detroit, Michigan, 48201.
God is trying to show you something every step of the way. When things seem to be going wrong, that's God's way of opening another door. I am convinced that God has been